Everybody wants to see the top performer sweating. Today's contestant also has a duel within, GPU 1 in particular. Let's see what we got from the 2003 high-end gaming PC build. The base of our build is the MSI K8N Neo Platinum, a top-of-the-line motherboard with the nVidia N-Force 3 250GB chipset, socket 754 for CPU, AGP x8 for our GPU, 3 slots for up to 3GB of DDR 333MHz or 2GB of DDR 400MHz memory. It is loaded with additional features, including on-chip gigabit LAN, 7.1 audio, 8-drive nVidia SATA or IDE RAID, and a dedicated communication slot for wireless or Bluetooth. Our CPU arrived pretty late in 2003, in December, first of the many that will carry the same name. AMD Athlon 64 3000 Plus, socket 754 variant, is one of the best CPUs you could get at the time. It features the same clock at 2.0 GHz as its older and rarer brother 3200 Plus. The only difference between them is a smaller L2 cache on 3000 Plus at 512 KB. Uncommon for the high-end builds, but this CPU was a damn good deal compared to the 3200 Plus. Half the cache for half the cash. We'll opt to use faster 400MHz memory, as for this build we prefer faster RAM than 50% extra capacity. To achieve the best possible performance, we'll use two of the Kingston HyperX 1GB DDR1 400MHz. As for the duel we mentioned, we have two graphics cards, one from ATI and one from nVidia. Our first contestant is the ATI Radeon 9800 Pro. Radeon's 9800 in general have implementations with R350 and R360 chip. Our variant from MSI has an R350 chip built on a 150nm process. The card supports DirectX 9, its GPU operates at 380MHz and the memory runs at 340MHz. This particular unit is equipped with 128MB of DDR2 memory connected over a 256-bit memory interface. The card draws extra power over the Molex Mini connector with a maximum power draw of 47W. In the other corner, similarly priced, or sometimes even cheaper, we have GeForce FX 5900 XT. nVidia still wasn't that active participant in the confusing naming competition, so our Asus variant is the same as any other. Using an NV35 graphics processor built on the 130nm process, the card supports DirectX 9.0a. The GPU operates at a frequency of 400MHz, while the memory runs at 350MHz over a 256-bit bus. The card supposedly supports shader model 2.0, but its implementation is quite questionable. The extra power is drawn over a Molex connector with a TDP of 35W. Both cards were considered excellent performers back in the day. Neither of them is top of the line, but more affordable versions of the ones that are. Still, if you're buying high-end, these were the cards to buy. As we couldn't find era-accurate hard drive to use for this build, we once again opted for 120GB SSD. We planned to do a case mod for this build, but due to some technical difficulties it had to be postponed indefinitely. So, as usual, we'll use our makeshift test bench. Here is the complete list of parts that we used in this build. We made a lot of changes to our benchmark presets in games. As a consequence, we cannot compare this build with our previous projects. But we intend to keep this as a standard, so we'll be able to compare the results with the future ones. We'll open a benchmark breakdown with Quake 3 Arena. Better drivers give 5900 XT an edge here, as both cards are limited by the CPU. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, as both cards give us amazing performance. We'll continue with The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. This game is still difficult to run, but performance is good on all of the presets, with the nVidia card giving us better performance on the lower ones. Released in the same year as these parts, the first Call of Duty game is running very well. 5900 XT takes a lead in the low preset, while 9800 Pro shows better performance in the high preset. This pattern repeats in a few of the other games as well. In accordance with the case mod theme we intended, we ran Need for Speed Underground. It proved not to be much of a benchmark for this build. We're at or near maximum frame rate, and we got the same performance from both of our cards. Things started to shift in Far Cry, as 9800 Pro had its first real win in the high preset. In the low and medium presets, both cards have shown similar performance. The frame rate is in playable territory for all of the runs. F.E.A.R was quite a victory for the ATI card, with the steep falloff for all higher than the minimum preset for nVidia. Medium and maximum performance for 5900 XT is abysmal, and we repeated runs about a dozen times just to be sure. While running excellently in the medium preset with 9800 Pro, the game is still not playable in the maximum preset with this card. On principle, we get a similar story in The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. This time it's playable even on the high preset with 9800 Pro. Weirdly, while running the same card on the very low and medium presets, we had quite some stutters. But when we set details to the high preset, all of the stuttering disappeared. GeForce FX 5900 XT was unable to run Crysis due to the shader model issue we already mentioned. So the Radeon 9800 Pro is the only contender we have here. Performance on the low preset is borderline playable, but definitely not great. The results we got from synthetic benchmarks match the results we got from game benchmarks. FX card starts with flying colors, only to burn and crash like Icarus when its shader model implementation flaws come to light. While quite enjoyable to use and play around with, we would not recommend this computer to any average time traveler. Similarly to the 1998 high-end, technology and performance were moving too fast for gaming PCs to stay relevant for more than 3 to 4 years. As for our GPU duel, we saw the GeForce FX 5900 XT throw in the towel in round 5, making ATI Radeon 9800 Pro the clear winner. High-end builds often do not make any sense to purchase, as you pay a premium for hardware that is aging rapidly. But they are quite fun to play with in retrospect. Hope you had some fun as well. See ya around!